Introduce.
Minister, you're very familiar with this case. I've asked you several times, going back to the middle of last year, to do what you could to secure the necessary funding to avert what is now imminent closure of the Cottage Home Family Support Service in Shankill that provides vital intervention support services for vulnerable families and children to keep them out of residential care, foster care and so on. And all they need is €400,000, and it appears TUSLA is saying they don't have the money. I really don't understand how they couldn't secure that money to secure the future of the service.
Ministers, 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Deputy. I appreciate your question about the Cottage Home Family Support Service. I agree with you that this organisation provides valuable services to children and families in South Dublin area. As you've indicated, you've previously tabled questions in relation to this service. Since that time, I have met with Minister Shane Ross, representatives from the Cottage Home, and representatives from TUSLA, the Child and Family Agency. At that meeting, all stakeholders were provided with the opportunity to express their concerns. I subsequently raised the issue of the future funding of the Cottage Home with TUSLA. I wrote to TUSLA requesting clarification on budgetary projections for spending on family support services in the Dublin South-Southeast Wicklow area, and any shortfalls in TUSLA's budgets which would hinder the agency in meeting identified needs. TUSLA has informed me that it does not have any additional funding to support this service. The Cottage Home is located in the TUSLA Dublin South, Dublin Southeast Wicklow area. TUSLA has fully committed its funds for family support services in this area, and as a result, there is no budget available to fund the Cottage Home Family Support Service, which has never received funding from TUSLA. However, TUSLA, as the Deputy knows, funds the residential service run by this organisation. And in 2018, TUSLA funding to the Cottage Home's residential service came to a total of €1.6 million. TUSLA has also advised that it is currently compiling a commissioning plan for services in the area. TUSLA's commissioning approach involves looking at the priority needs within each area to ensure that all resources allocated will enable TUSLA to achieve the best possible outcomes for children. TUSLA's overall aim, as cited in its commissioning strategy, is to ensure total resources are used in the most beneficial, efficient, effective, equitable, proportionate, and sustainable manner in order to improve outcomes for children. They do have a stakeholder event as part of its commissioning process in Dublin South, Dublin Southeast Wicklow planned in the coming weeks. They have informed me that it will invite the Cottage Home to be involved in that process. TUSLA has examined a number of options to source funding for this service while maintaining existing funded services, but has been unsuccessful to date. Should the services have to close, TUSLA will work with the Cottage Home to ensure it can provide the required alternative services to children and families.
1 minute, Deputy.
I don't know. Listen, Minister, I don't doubt that you've tried, but I just don't understand this. I mean, hundreds of millions on the National Children's Hospital, hundreds of millions. And here we're looking for €400,000 to keep a service that we know works, that provides support for 50 vulnerable families and their children, and saves the state a lot of money down the road. Because if this service goes, and that support that is provided those families goes, many of these children will end up in residential care and in foster care and cost the state more. Why would you let it go for 400,000? I just don't believe you can't come up with 400,000 for a service that you acknowledge, that TUSLA acknowledge works. It's just frankly unacceptable. And I really would ask the Minister, you know, I just can't believe you can't find 400,000. We can find 400 million plus for builders who frankly ripped the country off, but we can't find 400,000 for a service that is absolutely vital.
Minister,
it's just,
to respond.
it's not on.
1 minute.
Thank you, Deputy. I understand, I understand, your questions. I appreciate your representation. Your question also asked, what have I done? And I indicated I did a number of things in order to go back to TUSLA in terms of, asking the questions about, is it possible? Is there some additional monies? And they do great work, as you've indicated. As you know, I've met them myself. And as you've indicated, often prevention work can potentially save money down the line. I acknowledge that too. I guess my answer to you is that there has been that interrogation, that they don't have additional monies in light of the request, and although in the scale of other issues, 400,000 doesn't seem to be a significant sum of money, but it is a significant sum of money, generally speaking, within the context of TUSLA's budgets that they have to provide services for family and children in various regions, and effectively that there isn't the money at the time. That's not to say that, and that's our second part of my answer, that they have invited them to come to look at the planning for as we move into the additional time, and that there may be possibility, although I am aware of it may be the case that that's too late for the service, and I deeply regret that.
Final question.
Minister, I don't doubt that you've made efforts, and I know you know the value of this, but it is in that context I find it sort of shocking that the Minister knows the service shouldn't close, and yet the service is going to close almost certainly in April because of €400,000 that can't be found. Now, how many supplementary budgets have we had for health? Current spending, capital spending. Could we have a few supplementary budgets for things like this? I'm serious about that now. You know, it's not rocket science, to my mind, to go to Pascal Donoghue and to say, could we have a small supplementary budget? I don't think anybody in this House would object. For a measly 400,000 to save 6 jobs and 50 vulnerable families and their kids and so on to provide this service. Even if not on moral grounds, although it should be on moral grounds, but even on sort of value for money grounds for the state, because it is going to cost, without a shadow of a doubt, this will cost the state more if this service goes. I would appeal to you, Minister, if there's anything else you can do along those lines, please, please do it.
Minister to respond to 1 minute.
Thank you, Deputy. Again, I understand your passion. At the present moment, in the context of that budget for that region, if there was a decision to give them the 400,000, that would have to be taken away from some other services that, no doubt, are also doing a good job. I think that's just really important to say. Secondly, in terms of you know, requesting supplementaries, I think, Deputy, you would be aware, you know, that is I'm not saying that's necessarily we to completely, totally outrule that. There are certain time periods in doing that. It is obviously there are a lot of, this is the difficulty, this is the challenge. There are a lot of other services who are also looking for funds that the funds aren't there to meet the need in that regard. And we do need to continue to increase the budget. There's no question in relation to that. Will it cost more if the service closes? But I've said potentially it possibly could. And that is a good argument. And I will use those arguments when I go back to the Minister in relation to the next set of budget negotiations.